I'm Zach McCormick. You're watching The Current. We got Bob Mould in studio. He's going to play some classics from Hüsker Dü and Sugar for you.
2, 3, standing on the edge of Hoover Dam, I'm on the center line, right between Tuesday to mine. And if the wind from the traffic should blow me away, oh yeah, from this altitude, it will come back to you. And do you know the time, yeah? All that's left of me is like insanity. What's on the right? I don't know if the Mississippi should wash me away, yeah. Down in New Orleans, maybe someday in my dreams will I wake, feeling the sweat from the Gulf in my mouth. Oh, yeah. On a carousel, I can never tell my direction home, yeah. Spinning down the hole, losing all control. I'm down to the center of the air. But damn, I know, oh, now, oh, yeah. Covered up in lava, and I feel fine, yeah. It washes over me, keeps me feeling warm at night. If you made a deal with the guy with the horns and the cape, oh, yeah, I'll see you later, standing on the edge of Hoover Dam, yeah. Why am I here? Oh yeah, standing on the edge of Hoover Dam, why am I here? Oh yeah, standing on the edge of Hoover Dam, oh yeah, standing on the edge of Hoover Dam, I'm down. Oh yeah.
Zach McCormick joined in the Current studios right now. Punk rock icon Bob Mould. Great to have you in town.
Thank you for having me, Zach. How you doing?
So you're in town to take part in this wonderful farewell performance and show for the Suicide Commandos. And I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about your connection to Chris Osgood, frontman of the band, what their influence meant to you and the rest of the kind of Minnesota punk scene when you were getting started.
Oh my gosh, the Commandos were everything. So I grew up in the Adirondacks, and when I was 16, I used to read Rock Scene magazine, and they'd have like scene reports, and they had a photo of the Suicide Commandos. I knew I was coming to McAllister. I saw they were from the Twin Cities, so I bought the album ahead of coming out. Loved it. Got here in September of 78, and Thanksgiving 78 was the Commandos commit suicide, the 3 shows at the Longhorn. So I was like, oh, this is sad. So, Thanksgiving goes to Christmas, goes to New Year's, and then I'm at Orfolk, and Orfolk Jokopus, the record store that was on 26th and Lyndale back in the day, and there was, the flyer with the phone number pull tabs for guitar lessons from Chris Osgood, and I thought, well, if I can't see him, at least I can hang out with him.
Yeah.
So I would go over to Chris's house. I think he was on Pillsbury, and lived in the top floor of a big house with his then girlfriend, and I think she would like hide in the closet, and we would do guitar for an hour. So we did a lesson. Then I said, oh, great. Can we do another lesson? He's like, yeah, just do another one next week. Did the second one. And at the end of it, I'm like, can we do another lesson? He's like, no, you're ready. Just go start a band. You're done. So that was the guidance that I needed. And, then met Grant and Greg, and within a couple months, we were Hüsker Dü. And before the end of that semester, I think in May of 79, Chris oversaw the recording of the first Hüsker Dü demos at Janet Wallace Fine Arts Center at McAllister.
It's so cool to
nuts.
have him be this kind of figure for the local scene, because I think a lot of people maybe nationally don't realize their first record came out in 76, like the same year as the Ramones self-titled. I mean, that's super cool for a Minnesota band to be able to have put something on the map that early.
Yeah, I mean, it was, there was Blank Records, which was Cliff Bernstein, who's now Q Prime Management, everybody in Metallica, everybody in the world they manage. And so Cliff ran Blank Records as like a subsidiary of Mercury, I think, and Commandos and Perubu, another band I loved.
Yeah.
And I think there was a third record. It might have been a Bizarro's album. But yeah, Chris and Steve and Dave were so generous and so helpful to everybody, all the new bands in the scene. I don't think people understand the impact that they had on what was to come in the early 80s in Minneapolis.
We had Chris in the studio to have a chat with the Currents Morning Show, and they were talking about how you would drag your Flying V in like a guitar case on the bus over to yep.
Oh, yeah. It was the University Avenue bus, and I think it was 3 buses to get to Chris's house, but yep.
Quite the coordination there.
That was back in the day. That's how we did it.
So you were just about a year away from this last solo record that you put out, Here We Go Crazy, and it felt like your attempt at the time to kind of make sense of the chaos of the moment that we've been living in. It feels like things have gotten even a little crazier since then in the world. Do you worry that you're going to have to just make topical albums every time that you go to release a new record now?
Well, Here We Go Crazy, the song has some politics in the words. The rest of it is a pretty, personal record, a lot of love songs and situational, historical stuff. Certainly not as political as Blue Hearts was in 2020, which was the best I could do to warn people at the time. It's like, are we really going to do this one more time? And we didn't do it for 4 years. We had other things that we had to do, and now we're back to this horror that has been foisted upon us yet again. And I'm about done with it. I don't know what else I can say, really, except fuck these guys.
While we're kind of commenting on current events here, I thought that you shared this really touching message that I know hit home for me and a lot of other people living in the Twin Cities following ICE's occupation and the killing of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. What did you find inspirational about Minnesota's response to that moment?
I figured that Minnesota was going to say, oh no, we're not doing this. The Twin Cities, I mean, people here are very, very resilient, and they're very welcoming. I remember when I came here in '78 from a small farm town, no people of color, it's just French Canadians and natives and this white folk. And so I came out here and it's like, oh my gosh, this huge world of everybody. This is great. I got to get up to speed and learn about cultures and customs and the Hmong resettlement programs.
Yeah. So,
there's a long history here of Minnesota being welcoming, and Somali community, and so and what did I think when I saw what happened? Well, when I turned it on, and I was like, wait a minute, and then I see the Black Forest in the back, and I'm thinking, okay, wait, and then I'm like, this is my block where Twin Tone was and where the studio was, and and it was so multicultural then and now, and such a meeting point for everybody. I don't know what those folks over on the other side of the world, other side of the political world, were thinking when they came in here and tried to do what they did and try to continue doing it. And it was truly amazing to see the resolve of the Twin Cities and of the state, and it is a lesson for all of us to remember what happened and to learn from that and to continue to stand up against this kind of fascism.
Well said.
I can't change your mind, girl. Oh, but tears filled up my eyes, washed away with sorrow. But somewhere in my mind, I know there's no tomorrow. I see you're living soon, I guess you've had your fill. If I can't change your mind, then no one will hurry. If I can't change your mind, yeah. Oh, and all throughout the years, I never strayed from you, my dear. No, you suspect I'm somewhere else, feeling sorry for yourself, leaving with a broken heart. I love you even still. If I can't change your mind, then no one will hurry, yeah, yeah. If I can't change your mind, yeah. Even though my heart keeps breaking, don't you know that I'll be waiting here for you? Then when you return, when will you return? Hope you see I'm dedicated. Look how long that I have waited. You come back, you will find a different person if you change your mind. I explain away something that I haven't done. If you can't trust me now, never trust in anyone. With all the crazy doubts you got, love you even still. If I can't change your mind, then no one will. Oh yeah, yeah. If I can't change your mind, yeah. Oh. Said, yeah, someday you'll see I've been true. Stay that way until if I can't change your mind, no one will. Yeah, I know. If I can't change your mind, yeah. If I can't change your mind, yeah, I know. Yeah. If I can't change your mind, till I know. If I can't change it,
Zach McCormick from The Current, talking with Bob Mould in The Current studios right now. Thank you so much for joining us. You've characterized Sugar's return as something of like a test run to gauge interest when you first started that.
Yep.
And I've heard you describe sort of a similarly like pragmatic approach to touring, to releasing new music, like that audience response driven approach. Is that something that stems from your personal principles? Is it more of an economic reality?
I mean, there's a handful of things that I sort of live by with my work. Is, I don't take on any kind of project that I know I'm not going to be good at. Like if somebody says, we really need you to do this, the sort of gospel hymnal or some kind of, Appalachian thing that I'm not, I could probably do something, but I'm not going to be so good at it. So I try to stay sort of in my wheelhouse a little bit. As far as like business stuff, I don't know. I try to, under promise, over deliver.
Mm-hmm.
I try not to get caught up in the hype of this is the greatest tour ever.
Totally.
I could do it, but I think it's going to be a really good tour.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we're being practical about it. I'm interested to see how it goes, just because we're older. Malcolm hasn't toured much recently. David has toured a little, but not a lot.
Been supporting you on the road for some of your solo shows.
I brought him out a couple different, the last 2 years where I was doing fall solo shows in the South, David was on playing his songs. And so David's, he's still got a little bit of road familiarity.
Yeah.
So when we get down to Georgia and we learn, and then we're going to do 3 days of shows, in quotes, where, we get to the big space at sound check and wait around, figure out, because I want to, everybody's got to get back in that groove of what do we do in between and when do I eat, and so we're going to do simulation, and then we should be ready for May 2nd in New York.
I love that. Doing a little training. That's
great.
It
is.
Great.
Oh, I've been physically training pretty hard as well.
I was say, that's part of your background. Yeah,
cardio.
Let's talk a little bit about these great Hüsker Dü reissues that have been coming out the last couple of years. I know you have to get a little creative as to how you can access parts of that catalog to reissue it, but the Miracle Year, a recent compilation, Savage Young Dü a couple years before that. Do you feel like you have more to do in that space, no pun intended, with the Hüsker reissues?
Closet's pretty emptied out now.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
I mean, there's still live shows, but nothing at the level of Miracle Year, the January '85 First Ave, because that was 24 track.
Yeah.
And I was pretty amazed. So those tapes were found. Those tapes were sent to Electrical Audio in Chicago.
Very cool.
Those tapes are transferred to digital. The intent, I think, at one time was for Steve Albini to mix it.
Rest in peace.
Steve passed, and got the hard drive sent to Oakland to Tiny Telephone. My engineer, Bo Sorensen, and I hooked up the drive, sort of did a faders up, and just hit that. And I was like, dear God.
Yeah, we got something here.
I was like, this is fire. This is crazy.
Yeah.
I knew that band was good, right? And that was in that stretch where
totally.
I think from late '83 through late '85, the band was just on fire with writing and recording so much and touring constantly. But to hear, to be able to hear things isolate, things like to just Grant's vocal by itself, like, okay, my vocal by itself, and just it was pretty special. The two different Numero projects are quite different.
Yeah, absolutely.
The first one, Savage Young Dü, came out in 2017, right as Grant passed, and he had so much involvement with the artwork and everything. That was always something that we counted on Grant for, was the visual representation of the band. And the musical content of that one, that was the sound of a baby band, trying out different sounds, trying on different clothes, trying to figure out what's going to make us sound like us.
Are we a hardcore band? Are we working something poppier into our material? What's happening?
Are we going to be be a gloomy Joy Division kind of thing?
Totally.
Are we are we going to be power pop? What are we? And then and then it all sort of came together and got really fast and turned into a hardcore thing, and then it slowed down. But I think Savage Young Dü is a good that's like a textbook of how a band grows.
Yeah.
The Miracle Year box is more catching a band on fire and having such clean recordings to work with, and just it was so great to be able to get that mixed right, and so that's those two box sets are real cool.
About 15 years ago now, which is hard to believe, you released your memoir, See a Little Light.
Yep.
One of my favorite stories from this book, and some of my other coworkers at the station who are big wrestling fans, was hearing about your era in WCW. And there's a great indie wrestling scene that's kind of flowering right now in the Twin Cities with this promoter called First Wrestling and some others. I was just wondering, in your years interacting with wrestling, do you see any through lines between that kind of indie wrestling industry and what it took to carve out a DIY touring ethic with Hüsker Dü back in the 80s?
Yeah, there was overlap before the Cyndi Lauper stuff.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people in pro wrestling that were into punk rock and vice versa. I think it was like 83, 84. There were, me and a couple of friends in Ohio started a fanzine called Hardcore Wrestling.
Cool.
That was, sort of like an underground, like a dirt sheet kind of thing. It's there's a lot of similarities between indie wrestling and sort of DIY shows. Find a building, build a stage, set up a ring, crank up the PA, maybe have a little smoke and mirrors and, good versus evil and do all that stuff. There's a lot of overlap and big time TV wrestling is a whole different thing now. I have no idea what that actually is anymore. It's when you tell people like how you raise the animal that made the meat that makes the sausage. When you sort of tell everybody everything, it's like, okay, you got a bird up here your sleeve. It's not as fun as it used to be, but I get it. But what's the indie group? It's First Wrestling?
First Wrestling is the name of the local promoter. They do a bunch of local shows with some cool local young punk bands coming up, including Gully Boys have played some of their events over the years and stuff. So yeah,
where's their home base? Like building wise?
First Avenue has been a big spot for them, and then this last year they took over the Rotunda at the Mall of America. Which is pretty
my
cool
gosh!
Too.
Well, that's where the first WCW Monday Nitro was, right?
Doing the history there. I think they were probably nodding a little bit to that.
Yeah, 96. Oh my God.
Okay, Bob, one more question for you here. Last year, you accepted this honorary doctorate at Macalester, your alma mater, and in the speech, you expressed this sort of faith in the next generation to maybe perhaps create some positive change. Now, both musically and in the world, what have you been seeing in young people that's giving you kind of that faith in the future?
Well, I mean, younger politicians like AOC and Mamdani, I mean, are bringing this wild, crazy, exotic, threatening, horrifying notion of socialism, sort of like Social Security, that kind of thing, to people where where everybody could have a fair wage and health care and education. And I think, social media, we now understand decades later we understand the bargain we made when we clicked the box, right? And agreed to the terms. It's pretty terrible. And I think that there are a lot of smart young folks who are turning away from that world this past 20 years of algorithms and pressure and all this stuff that is truly bad. And now, with AI coming up right behind it, and living in San Francisco and seeing what's happening and knowing sort of a little bit about that sausage, I'm like, oh God, we got to get this under control. The government the other day, they sort of Section 230 was the big problem, right? We're not editorial. We're not a newspaper. We're just a platform. Yeah, but what's that volume knob?
Right. Yeah.
That wasn't part. Okay, so that's another. So now we have to go there to get it stopped. I think youth are wise to it now, and just use paper.
Yeah,
use paper.
It's a great place to start.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Makes no sense at all. 1, 2, 3. Walking around with your head in the clouds. Makes no sense at all. So you're so short, but you're walking so tall. Makes no sense at all. What to the portrait, you're yelling so loud. Makes no sense at all. Walking around with your head in the clouds, yeah. Makes no difference at all, yeah. Makes no sense at all. Makes no difference at all, yeah. I don't know why you wanna tell me when I'm right or when I'm wrong. It's the same thing in your mind. The only time I'm right is when I play along. When I play along. Yeah, yo, walking around with your head in the clouds. Makes no sense at all. So you're so short, but you're walking so tall. Makes no sense at all. Listen to portents, you're yelling so loud. Makes no sense at all. Walking around with your head in the clouds now. Makes no difference at all, yeah, makes no sense at all. Makes no difference at all, yeah. You concern yourself with evidence, it's evident to me. You say you've got the tiger by the tail. I don't see these things at play. See these things at play, yeah. Well, you're walking around with your head in the clouds. Makes no sense at all. Selling you so short, but you're walking so tall. Makes no sense at all. You see the important, yelling so loud. Makes no sense at all. Walking around with your head in the clouds now. Makes no difference at all. Yeah, makes no sense at all. There's no difference at all, yeah. Walking around with your head in the clouds. It makes no sense at all.
Thank you so much, Bob Mould, for your time, and we really appreciate you stopping by on The Current.
Thanks for having me.
You're watching The Current. Head over to thecurrent.org to find more great videos like this one. You can also check us out on The Current's YouTube page and make sure you're liking and subscribing as well so you get more great videos of people like Bob Mould in your feed.